Posidonius was born into a Greek family in Apamea in northern Syria. Like most other Stoics, he went to Athens. From there, he learned under the leading Stoic of the age, Panaetius, and the last undisputed head of the Stoic school. When Panaetius died in 110 BCE, Posidonius was 25 years old, being a young man and full of Stoic vigor. He chose to go to Rhodes, where he settled and became a citizen. He even opened up his own school, but he didn't stay there for long. Nicknamed the Athlete, he would go on a series of voyages exploring the Mediterranean. He would go all over, from Greece, probably Athens, Hispania, to Italy, Sicily, Illyria, Gaul, and even North Africa. In Spain and Gades, he studied the waves and how the tide was affected by the moon, and how all this tied into the greater ecosystem of the world. I think he learned a lot there. In Gaul, he had vivid descriptions, which he studied their Celts and their culture, their customs, and what they did for entertainment. For example, slitting their throats for fun, or money, or nailing the skulls of their defeated enemies to their doorways. But he respected the Celts because they respected the Druids, and the Druids he saw as philosophers among them, saying, even among the barbaric, pride and passion give way to wisdom, and Ares stands in awe of the Muses. None of his work on the Celts really survive, but it does live on in fragments of others' work, like Diodorus of Sicily, Strabo, our boy Caesar, and even Tacitus. When he was going back to Rhodes in the early 80s BC, he became a member of the Prytaneus, which is the most powerful and important political office in Rhodes, combining presidential and executive functions. He was also one of the select few men running the day-to-day operations of the state for 6 months. It is important because he was chosen for an embassy to Rome in the mid-80s. It was extra contentious due to the First Mithridatic War, where these ambitious men were tearing up the Mediterranean. Under Posidonius, Rhodes surpassed Athens in the intellectual department and the philosophical one, but we're unsure if the trend started with Posidonius or Panaetius because he was also a native to Rhodes. Why the decline? Because Rhodes was an island. All you really need to get there is a boat, a paddle, and willpower. Also, he was attractive and prosperous, welcoming to intellectuals, and had a good reputation, and unlike Athens, it was an independent state that didn't need no man. In 77 BC, Posidonius was a larger-than-life figure, so he started to attract many important and influential figures in history, like Marcus Tullius Cicero, who went there in his younger years to get some advice and learn from Posidonius, or like Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, or Pompey, Caesar's friend, who was on his rise to power. Once seeing him in 66 BC when he was on his way to defeat the Cilician pirates, and one in 62 BC when he was on his way to fight Mithridates. He learned from him that there is no good but moral good, in which Posidonius says that it is no good pain, bothersome you may be, but you will never persuade me that you are an evil. Interesting. Marcus Tullius Cicero would later request him to write a monograph for his consulship, seeing as it was a pretty big achievement in Rome at the time. But Posidonius declined, probably because Rome was conquering all throughout the Mediterranean and would eventually target his home island next. But Cicero would later refer to him as his teacher and his dear friend. Posidonius would later kick the bucket, passing the reins of the school on the Rhodes to his grandson, Jason of Nyssa. Jason would vanish from the historical record, not saving much of his grandfather's work, with his grandfather's work only surviving in fragments of other authors. It's a shame, because going from the Middle Stoa into the late Stoa, Posidonius was a larger-than-life figure who was a polymath, or a man of great intellect skilled in many subjects, like these. And it's a shame because none of his work survive. The only one to succeed him in Stoicism is arguably Seneca, who was around at the time to copy some of his works and learn from his studies and explorations. And Seneca the Younger, though his name betrays him in this statue, Seneca would go on to be the most leading figure in Stoicism. And just look at that face. Beautiful.